Okay, so we'll get started with this in just a second. A couple reminders as we're moving forward here. So we're down to about, what do we have, about 3 more weeks left in the class. We'll have 2 more basically class days to work on the Villa Savoye, and then the final class day, all you're required to do is to turn it in, but you will have the entire class if you want to use that as time to work on your project. So the final project will be due. It's supposed to be due by 3 o'clock on that day, by the end of the class, but I will extend the deadline till the end of the day. So basically by midnight. So for those that just need the extra time, keep in mind that unlike the midterm, where you're allowed to turn it in up to 10 days late, you can't do that with the final. Okay, you have to turn it in that day. So don't kind of go in with the impression that, if I'm not quite ready, I'll turn it in a couple days late. You can't do that, unfortunately. I don't even think Canvas will be. I don't think it's even up. I don't think you can physically turn anything in after the final day of the class. So make sure that you come to the last day of class with the impression to turn it in, hopefully before you leave. If you need more time, that's okay. But ideally, we should all be focusing to finish before we leave. I will not be here the final class. Unfortunately, I sadly am in 6 weddings this summer, and number 2 will be will be our final day of class. So you guys met Lana on the first day. Lana was the old Revit teacher. She usually subs for my class just whenever I need it. Luckily, all of my weddings are during the summer, and it's not during the semester next semester. So. Hooray for spending a ton of money to go to weddings this summer. But I unfortunately will not be here the last day. So she will be available to answer any questions. Fortunately for you guys, it's just a work day. There's no formal lecture that day. It's just strictly a class for you guys to either turn in your project right when you guys walk in, or you can spend as much time as you want kind of tidying things up. So up to you and how you want to use that day. But she will be available to answer any questions on the Villa Savoye. She knows everything about it. She taught the class for a few semesters herself, so she knows kind of what we're doing in the class. So she will be available for questions if you have them. Okay.
The final day is in 2 weeks, right?
And that's in 2 weeks. So that's on, I believe, May 19th, I think, or May 20th. I believe May 20th is the last day of the class. Okay, so we'll have this class, 2 more classes after this to work on the villa, and then the final class you're just basically required to turn it in. Okay, so that's basically how the semester will wrap up over the next few weeks. All right, so I think that's about it. Okay, so moving forward today, this is kind of a look at what the final piece will look like, minus a bunch of details that you're not seeing on the inside. All right, so today we're going to focus on a couple critical elements of the villa. We're going to focus on the vertical circulation, okay? So we're going to focus on the stairs that you will need to get to the top, or to basically that are inside this core, okay? And we're also going to focus on the ramping that goes from the lower ground level up to the roof, okay? So we're going to create both of those elements. And then the next 2 classes will focus on some of the even more finer details that you're not seeing in this view right here. Okay, so any questions about the next few classes or moving forward at all? Some of you guys may have already kind of tackled some of these elements. I know a few of you are kind of blazing through this, but I think a majority of us are probably at, let's see, let me go to my other Revit file that I have. A majority of you are probably at about this state right here, okay? So here we have all of the floors modeled on the lower level and on the second level and on the roof level, along with the interior partitions and doors, okay? The only thing that we're not showing right here is those vertical circulation elements, okay? So right now, kind of a general progress, you should be at about this state, okay? Or close. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right into this and move forward. So I know so far we haven't really talked about ramps, right? So we've talked about staircases, and we've talked about the different types of staircases and how we can manipulate them to get what we're looking for. So let's start with the ramping that we're going to want to get from the ground level up to the roof, and then we're going to talk about how to create some of these kind of more intricate walls that we're going to have that surround and support the ramps, okay? So let's start by going to the ground level, and this will kind of give us what we need to get started. So we're going to go up to architecture, and then we're going to go up to ramp. All right, and let's look at our properties dialog box first, and let's kind of talk about what we're going to need to get this going. Okay, so the first question that it asked is, just like when creating a stair, is what are your base constraints and your top constraints going to be? All right, so we're going to go ahead and select ground level, and we're going to go ahead and for our base constraint, and we're going to select first floor for our top constraint. Okay, so. And let's see, let me just look at a couple more things. We have the width of our ramp, so before we actually start, you can actually maybe measure the width of our ramp. So if we go over here and measure this from wall to wall, we're going to notice that we're about 3'8", 3'8", 3'9", depending on how accurate you built this. All right, so I'm going to go back to ramp. Let's see, I think all of our constraints by default are what we want. And the ramp dimensions or the ramp width is also nice. Okay, that will also work. So I'm going to go ahead and start my ramp right here at about the middle of where our ramp starts. So if you guys have looked at pictures of the interior lobby of the villa, when you walk in, basically there's kind of like a little, it's just kind of a little lobby area. If there's not a whole lot going on down here, there's some chairs. We also have a wall, kind of a spiraling wall, if you've seen those kind of cool pictures of the wall. We're not going to build that wall today. We're going to build that wall next class, but we will, for starters, we're going to build the actual surrounding, and we'll build the stair. In the next class, we're going to look at how can we build that more intricate spiraling wall that goes to the top. It's actually pretty tricky. It's we're going to leave a class in itself to tackle that, okay? I promise that tackling the ramping and the walls that surround the ramping will be probably a good chunk of time today. So, but when you walk in, the first thing that you have the option to do is to either walk over to the left and start taking the stairs up to the other levels, or you take the long ramping up to the top. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start with our ramp right here at the top. We're going to start our cursor. We're going to be at about where it says midpoint, okay? And we're going to go ahead and start drawing our ramp up to the top. So when you start drawing a ramp, what it's going to do is it's going to only allow, by default, I think by ADA, you can't draw more than a 30-foot ramp, okay, before you have to have a landing. So Revit, by default, will only allow you to draw a 30-foot ramp, okay, before it makes you draw in another landing. So notice that just like a stair, when you're drawing a stair, how it kind of shows you how many treads you need to get to the very top, it also kind of shows you kind of like a gray path of about where you need to be to get to your next level. Well, Revit will do the exact same thing. So right here would be the 30-foot mark, all right, but we're actually going to stop it right here at the top of our landing. All right, so I'm going to stop it right there. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and pick up and resume on the other side. And then Revit will go ahead and do its own thing by filling in the landing for you. All right, so we're going to go ahead and stop it right there. And it says down here at the very bottom that you have drawn 58 feet of ramp and you have 7 inches remaining. So we actually have a couple more inches. We're going to go and address this in just a second. The reason why it doesn't work out as perfectly as you want is because when they originally created the ramp for the villa, there was no such thing as ADA, okay? So there was no kind of minimum or maximum slope required. So unfortunately, the slope to get up to the top is actually kind of a funky slope. We figured it out last semester and what it actually is. I think it's I'll look it up here in just a sec. I have it in my other model, but it's something like 1 to 6 inches of slope, which is not even close to what would be required to ADA. ADA is like 1 to 12. So by code, you would never actually be able to use a slope that is shown here in the villa. Okay, so let's just hit the check mark just really quickly. Let's just see how this looks. This is not going to line up perfect just quite yet. Okay, but if you notice, our ramp is probably about 6 inches too short. Okay, and when we were creating the ramp, it said that you're basically 7 inches away from reaching the top. Unfortunately, we can't create, it won't allow you to create more than 30 feet of ramp. So we're going to fix this here in just a second. But we'll notice that our ramp down here at the bottom, it starts right at grade, so you have a nice gradual descent, and then it will go up to a landing, and then it will continue up to the next level. Okay, so the nice thing about a ramp is by default is that it also includes your guardrails. Okay, so and if you want to, depending on what you're trying to do, you can either edit those by just going to edit path and editing your railing just like you would when we did the residence. Okay, if you want to kind of edit how that structure might work, or you can delete them all together if you don't want them, which we're going to end up doing here in just a few minutes. So let me go back to the finished product really quickly, and let me look at the slope of this ramp. Okay, so if you go to edit type, you're going to have a few more different parameters that you have to adjust your ramping system. Okay, so down here you can actually tell it if you want to override what the maximum incline length is, you can do that. We're going to go ahead and leave it at 30 feet. And we're going to change, what you're going to want to do when you start doing your ramp is you're going to want to change that ramp max slope to 5.5. That's kind of the magic number for your ramp to basically get to the top level with the space that the floor plan gives you. Okay, so it's not, the floor plan it won't work by the default slope that Revit gives you. So that's the only thing that you should have to change for this to work out, is you're going to want to change that max slope to 5.5. Okay, let me go back to, let's see, is this the one that we just created? Okay, let's go back to this one. I'm going to go ahead and delete this. We're going to do this over one more time. So I'm going to go back to my ground floor. And let's see, we're going to go back over to ramp. We're going to go to edit type. It looks like my ramp slope is already 5 feet. So this is actually good. The reason why that it's already at 5.5 is because I had already created it previously, but yours will probably be like 12. 12 will probably be what yours comes up with when you guys start your ramp. Okay. Another way that you can make sure you get to the top is you can always start from the top and work backwards, or you can start from the bottom and work up to the top. Okay, so I want mine to start right here, so we're actually going to do just about the same thing we did last time. All right, so I'm going to go up to the top to my landing, and I'm going to go ahead and go back to here, and I'm going to draw it all the way to the very top. Now it says I have 7 inches remaining to get to that level. I'm going to move this basically 8 inches. Okay, and that will allow us to get to our next level. So we're going to go ahead and hit the check mark, go back up to the top, and you may have to kind of notch this out just a little bit. It's still showing that we're a couple inches short, so I'm going to go to edit boundary, and I'm going to go to that first floor, and here you can see where that ramp comes up. So I'm just going to go like this. I'm just going to notch my flooring just a little bit, and that will allow that ramp system to work. So we're going to go ahead and hit no. I actually have 2 floors in here. I have 1 floor on top of the other. So let me just fix that as well. Let's see. Sorry, one sec. Let me just do one more thing. Okay, so let's look at this in 3D. Let's kind of see what we have here. All right, so that's looking better. So we kind of have our ramp that goes from our ground level up to our first level, okay? From there, I'm gonna go ahead and delete the railings. I don't want the railings because we're actually going to build a wall system in the middle where you're gonna have your handrails, okay? So an easy way to build the next level, you know, I always say to don't repeat the process if you don't need to, but if you click on your ramp, we're gonna go ahead and go up to the very top under your clipboard. And right here, these two little pieces of paper, so you say copy to clipboard, we're gonna click on that, and then over here we're gonna go to paste, and we're gonna align to select levels, okay? And then we're gonna click on, let's see, I think it's second floor. We're gonna hit OK. Nope, not the second floor. Let's move this from first floor to second floor. And hit apply. And that will give us our ramping in the exact same place. Okay, same thing here, we can fine tune this. Now, if you really wanted your ramp to actually stop right there at the edge, you can certainly do that. It's just unfortunately the slope for the Villa Savoye, it's actually probably more like 5.6 or something like that. But if you kind of dial in that slope, you can actually get it to stop at the exact point that you want, okay? I'm not going to calculate that right in front of you right now, but that would be kind of what you need to do in order to get the exact look that you're going for. Okay, but this will work. This will work for now. All right, so you can see here that we have our ramp from our very bottom level all the way up to our top level. Any questions about how we got that? Any questions at all? Okay, so those are going to be our ramps. That's going to be our first form of vertical circulation. So let's just click on this one more time. Let's look at our different constraints. So we have all of our base constraints and our top constraints located under our properties dialog. You can also edit the width down below. And you can also, if you click on edit type, you can adjust the thickness of the ramp. You can adjust the ramp material if you want to make it less, if you want maybe the tile and the ramp to match whatever the tile of the patio is. Whatever you want to do, that's going to be how you're going to fix that. And you can also adjust the ramp in this location, okay? So if we go back, remember when we created a stair and we actually created it by scratch? We actually created it by hand versus kind of instead of using the stair option that creates it for you. Well, when you create a ramp, you also have some of those same possibilities, okay? So when you go to edit type and you click on, or I'm sorry, when you go to down here and you define the width, if you want to define, if you want to actually edit some of the other properties, like right here I can see that my landing is a little bit short. You can go through and you can adjust some of the boundaries of your landing to get a more custom look, okay? You're not gonna really need to do that for the Villa Savoye. It's a pretty straightforward landing, but if you're working on a project where maybe you have kind of some different angles or some curves in your ramping system, you can go through here and you can edit the widths of individual portions of the ramp, or you can edit them all around. All right, any questions about that? Good, all right. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit the check mark, and let's look at building some of the extra walls. All right, so let me go back to my master so you can kind of see what those walls are gonna look like. All right, so if you go to the roof, and actually I think down below, let's see, there's actually not, here, let's get a section plane through here and let's see what this is looking like kind of in the middle of the building. Section box. Okay, so you could see here that we would actually, I'm not showing it, but you would actually have a wall. They don't have railings that go all the way up to the top. They actually just use walls. So you guys can fill in the wall. You can see in the CAD file where you would actually have that. I'll let you guys draw that. I don't believe, even though the CAD file shows a wall right here, I don't think there's actually a wall in that location. If you look at photographs of the actual building, I don't think that actually exists, okay? Well, what I'm gonna concentrate and what we're gonna look at most today is we're gonna look at how to create these walls over here on the exterior, okay? From the patio up to the roof, okay? So let me go back to that second file. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with this wall right here. I'm going to edit this one so that it attaches to our, let's see, what wall is that? Okay, so this wall I've already created. This is going to be the wall that acts as the boundary of our ramp. I'm going to actually use that same wall, and I'm going to allow it to continue up and act as basically the guardrail of our ramp. Okay, so I'm going to click on that wall, and I'm going to go over to Edit Profile. All right, and then from here I can start to create the boundary of our ramping system. Okay, so I'm going to use my Pick Lines tool, and I'm going to select the outer edge of this wall. Okay, and I'm also going to select, I'm actually going to use this line over here as the beginning boundary of my sloped wall. Okay, and then from here we know that guardrail height is 3 feet 6 inches. I'm going to go ahead and change my offset to 3 foot 6 inches, and I'm going to use the ramp slope as kind of the guide to match as the top of my wall for my ramp. Okay, so if I click on that ramp slope, that will give me a nice perfectly even line that is 3 feet 6 inches all the way up to this wall over here. Okay, so I can then go over here and close these corners in. Okay, go like this and like that. Does everyone see how I'm getting kind of that boundary of that ramp system? Everyone see how we did that? So we hit the check mark, and now you can see that we have created a wall that acts as the boundary of the ramp. Okay, I'm just going to back up and do that one more time for you. Okay, so right now you should probably have a wall that's just going up to the first level. I'm going to use that same wall. Okay, you could create a new wall if you wanted to attach the base, or you could attach it to your floor structure, if I could find it. There it is. Okay, so you could attach that to your floor structure. I'm going to use that same wall though, and I'm going to go to Edit Profile, and I'm going to use the elements that are already in my model to act as the boundary. Okay, I'm going to offset my ramp slope 3 feet 6 inches. Okay, and then I'm going to use my Trim Corner tool to close off the boundary. Right. Okay, everyone see how we got that? Go ahead and hit the check mark, and that will give us the boundary of our wall. Okay, so now if we go back to our master file, the next thing that we're going to create is we're going to create this little window here. Okay, and feel free to reference some photographs. If you look at some photographs of the real building, you'll kind of get an idea of what that actually looks like. Basically, this window assembly is the same exact window assembly that you created for the back of the villa. Okay, it's just kind of that real tight grid-like assembly. Okay, so I called this rear window assembly. So let's go back to my progress. So I'm going to go up to the, what is this, our first floor. I'm going to go to my first floor plan. All right, I can see that wall that I just created right here. I'm going to go back to my wall systems, and I'm going to go find that window assembly that I had already created. So we called that rear window assembly. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and draw my wall, and where you start this, you can kind of start it wherever you want, because we're going to end up editing the profile anyways. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that window all the way to the edge of this wall. Okay, let's go back, and you can see that we've got something that looks a little bit like that. All right, that's okay. That's what we're looking for. We're going to go ahead and click on that wall, and we're going to click on Edit Profile one more time. All right, and actually let me go back. I'm going to make this just a little bit shorter, just so it's not quite so big. And a little bit smaller. Let's go to unconnected. Maybe we make this just about 3 feet tall for now. I just want you guys to be able to see the wall that's behind it. Okay, so now we're going to click on this wall. We're going to go to Edit Profile, and we're going to do just the same thing that we just did a few minutes ago, but instead of offsetting this top line right here 3 feet, we're actually going to just go ahead and click on the bottom portion of that ramp. Okay, so that our top mullion will align with the bottom of our ramp. Okay, So I'm going to go ahead and define our boundary for our new window. Okay, so we've now defined our boundary. And we're going to go ahead and hit the check mark, delete elements, and that will give us our little window piece below our ramping. Okay, so what that's doing is it's allowing light to come into basically the ramp that's below and the first floor. Okay, everyone see how we did that? So that's all we need for this portion of our ramp. All right, so we're going to go ahead and create the next one by creating the wall assembly that's over here in the middle. All right, so I'm going to use this same wall right here, and I'm going to, let's see, let me go to my first floor. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take this wall right here, and I'm going to go ahead and drag it all the way over to my landing. All right, so if I go over here, I could see that wall just like so. And just like before, I'm going to click on that wall, and I'm going to edit the profile. Okay, I'm going to edit the profile, and I'm going to offset my top of my wall up 3.5 feet. All right, so I'm going to offset that wall like so. Like that. Actually, I take that back. I'm just kind of rethinking of how that actually looks. What we're going to do is we're going to offset, let me back that up. We're going to offset that only a foot. Okay, so 1 foot. Yeah, because this one has a railing. It has a railing that acts as the wall, okay? But what we're going to do is we're basically going to create kind of a platform for that rail to embed into. All right, so I'm going to offset that line by just a foot. Basically, you're just creating like a 1 foot curb, and then the railing will take place of the rest of that wall. Okay, so we'll go ahead and finish this by defining our boundary, like so. And we're going to go ahead and hit the check mark. All right, so there's our new wall, our new, I guess, partial wall for our ramp. Okay, so let's go ahead and take this a step further, and we're going to add our glazing inside this space right here. All right, so we're going to go back to the first floor. We're going to do the same thing as we did earlier, rear window assembly, and I'm going to go ahead and draw it from the beginning of my ramp to the end of my ramp. It's actually probably going to want to be about a foot short. Okay, let's go back to 3D, and let's make this a little bit smaller. And let's make it even more smaller. Okay, so that's probably a good place to start. So we're going to go ahead and click on Edit Profile again. And before, we're going to do the same exact thing we did before, is we're going to use the bottom of the ramp as our line that we're going to try to pick. Okay, might be kind of tricky to do that. Let's see. In fact, I don't know if I'll be able to do that with that wall there. It's not going to allow me to do that. But you know what? I know that this wall is 1 foot on the top of this ramp. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to offset, and I know my ramp is 3 inches thick, so I'm going to offset this 1 foot 3 inches from this line right here. Okay, so I know that this line will now be at the bottom of our ramp system. You could also use your section box tool if you wanted to see the bottom of your ramp. There's a few things that you could do if you actually want to click on the bottom of your ramp to be able to see it. Okay, so now we can go ahead and enclose our boundary. Let's see. Oh, actually we got to do one more thing. We're going to go ahead and select the top of the ramp right here as our bottom boundary of our window system. Now we can go ahead and enclose this. Oops. I guess we can just get rid of this one. We don't need that one at all. We can get rid of the bottom one. And we can go ahead and enclose this down here at the end. We may actually not want it to go, it actually kind of looks a little funky going right down to a point like that. They would probably actually stop it right there at that mullion. So maybe we just kind of stop it about, maybe about right here. Okay, so we'll have something that looks like that. Get rid of that. And we'll go ahead and hit the check mark. Oh, it's telling me that I didn't finish enclosing my boundary. So we're just going to use our trim tool and close it off like that. And we'll go ahead and just hit delete elements. That's just telling you that you have a few mullions that are going to be deleted from your original layout. Okay? So does everyone see how we got that? Everyone see that? Okay, so those are the two walls that you're going to need to build on the side of your ramp. All right? So let's go to the next step and let's create our railing. Okay? So I'm going to go up to my second level and I'm going to go click on railing. And I'm going to click on sketch path. And if you look at the photographs, the railing actually goes from basically this corner all the way down to the very bottom. Okay? Oh, I forgot one thing. So remember when we were creating the railings for the residents that if you want to have a point of your railing that alters the ground plane, you need to actually have a breakpoint in your railing. Okay? So we're going to start it right here at this corner. And we're going to draw the first line basically to the top of the ramp. And then the second line, you're going to start again and go down to the bottom. Okay? By creating these two different line segments, you're telling Revit that there's going to be a break in the ground plane. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and hit the check mark. Let's go back up to my 3D level. And you're going to get something that looks like this. That's okay for now. I'm going to change this to handrail, let's see, pipe. Okay? And I'm going to click on pick new host, and I'm going to click on my ramp. Oh, that didn't work. Let's see. Why did that not work?
It's not on the wall.
No, it doesn't have to be on the wall. I'm going to show you guys how to get around that in just a sec. Let's see. What did I do differently than last time? Let's do this. Let's do railing. Let's do place on host. Let's try this. Okay, so that right there, that automatically puts the railings on there. I'm just trying to remember the process that I did to do this last time. Let's change this to a pipe. We're going to go to edit path. We're going to go ahead and delete this other portion. Okay. And we're just going to finish it by drawing it to this edge. Here we go. That's what we're looking for. All right, and if you want it to go into the middle of the wall, so notice right now that it's about an inch or two offset from the edge of this wall. You're going to go up to your properties dialog box and you're going to notice this option to offset from path. Okay, I'm going to change that to maybe about 2 or 3 inches. Let's try 3 inches. And notice that it moves it over into the center of the wall. Okay, any questions about how we got that? Let's do that one more time. Okay, so what we did was we went up to railing, place on host. I clicked on my ramp, which will be my host, and it's going to go ahead and give you the default railings just like it would when you create the ramp. I'm going to go ahead and delete the unnecessary portions that I don't need. I'm going to edit this path, get rid of that second portion, and we're just going to add the last little leg. Okay, click on the check mark, change this to our pipe railing, and we're just going to give it a little offset from the original path. There we go, handrail pipe. All right, so I could definitely spend a little bit more time kind of cleaning this up just a little bit, some of these little details, but I won't do that right in front of you. A couple little things like this. My ramp should have probably started just a couple inches before that. But in a nutshell, that will basically get you that space that you have outside. Okay, so that's going to be our ramp. Any questions about ramping at all? Ramps? Good. Okay, so let's go to the next step and let's look at how to create our stair. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start at the ground level. All right, and let's start by first creating this wall. Today we're just going to create this wall so that it goes all the way up to the roof. Or next class we'll look at actually how to create that kind of spiraling wall. If you guys have seen pictures, in fact, let's just look at it real quickly so you guys can, to make sure that everybody knows what I'm talking about. Villa, Savoye, staircase. Okay? So this is what we're actually going to be creating. So it's pretty tough though. I will admit it actually took me a little time to create that custom wall assembly, but we'll look at how to do that next class. Today we're just going to create a straight wall all the way up to the top. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at a new feature that you guys, or a new tool that we have not created or we haven't learned yet. We're going to click on the Architecture tab, and we're going to go all the way up to the right-hand side, and we're going to go under the Opening tab, and we're going to look at how to create a shaft. Okay? So we're going to click on Shaft, and then we're going to define a boundary of where that shaft is going to be. Okay? So that boundary is going to be the outer extents of our stair shaft. Okay? I can then use my Pick Lines tool and go ahead and pick the outer perimeter of our stairwell. Okay, so you would typically use this when creating stairs or elevators. Okay, so it tells you over here in your properties dialog box to define a couple parameters. Okay, so the base constraint of our shaft is going to be the ground level. If you were creating an elevator shaft, you would make the base offset like 4 feet because you're going to have an elevator pit. Okay, so what the shaft tool is going to do is it's going to basically cut out an opening of everything that profile passes through. So it'll create an opening in every single level that it goes through. So it's the nice thing about you can create your levels. You don't have to create, you don't have to notch out an area for your stair on every single level. Okay. So your top constraint, we're going to go ahead and make that our 3rd floor. Okay. And maybe we make this just go, make sure it goes all the way through the floor. I'm going to give it like a 4-foot offset. Okay? And we're going to go ahead and hit apply and the check mark. Unjoin, that's fine. All right. And the nice thing about a shaft is you can't see it. It's not a physical element that you can see inside your model. Notice that our model doesn't, or our floor plan doesn't look any different. But if we go look at this in plan, you'll notice, or in 3D, you'll notice that it cut out a hole in our floor, and it'll do that for every single level above that. So you can see how that'll be really nice if you're creating like a skyscraper or something like that, or maybe you have 50 floors and you need to have an elevator shaft go through all of your levels. That's going to be the quick way to do that. Okay, let's go back to our ground floor and let's add our walls. Okay, so we're going to go up to wall. I'm just going to use my interior wall assembly. 8 inches. I think this is a little bit bigger. Let's just double check. Oh, no, this is the small one. So let's go to my...
I think it's the 4-inch wall.
4-inch. I think I created mine at 5. I'm going to go ahead and use my Pick Lines tool, and I'm going to do this at the center line. Let's see if it'll let me. Maybe not. So let's do Finish Face Exterior. Okay, so that's going to look something like that. Let's go ahead and connect these. Oh, why aren't you connecting? Oh, there's really no reason why that shouldn't connect. Of course, Revit just wants to be a little fussy. I think it's because of this wall right here. This wall is interfering. So there's our wall going through our shaft. Go back to the ground floor. There we go. Okay, so what I just did was, because there was a wall that was actually intersecting the wall up on the next level, it wasn't allowing it to join. So by clicking on the wall and that little blue toggle at the end of the wall, I can right click on it, click on disallow join, and that will allow you to freely move it in whatever way that you want. Yeah, it will. You click on architecture, and down at the very end under opening, you'll see a little button that says shaft. Okay? All right, so if we click on all of these walls that we just created, let's just make sure they go all the way up to the top. Ground level, we're going to go ahead and make this go all the way up to the 3rd floor. Actually, you know what? I'm going to let this go just up to. I'm going to let it go just up to the 1st floor, just for now. The only reason is because I actually already created the walls and the roof. Save that in a second. Okay, I've already created these up here. So if I was to let it go all the way up, you're gonna want to let it go all the way up to the 3rd floor. That will actually create these walls right here for you. But being that I had already created them, I'm not gonna. Otherwise, they'll just overlap. All right, so let's look at the stair. All right, so we're gonna go over to stair, and we're gonna do. Let's see, what do I want to do? Let's do stair by component, and we're gonna go ahead and use this little feature called the U-shape winder. Okay, well, we're gonna edit this here in just a few minutes. Okay, so I'm gonna click on this U-shape winder. I'm going to turn this 90 degrees. Let's see, let's look at our constraints just to make sure we're going from the ground floor over to the 1st floor. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna do it a different way. I think you're gonna have to do this by sketch, because also just like the ramp, when they created these stairs for the villa back in the day, there's nothing about that staircase that is remotely ADA. So the stair treads will be a little funky. So let's see. We're gonna go to stair. I'm gonna do stair by sketch, and what I'm gonna do here is I'm going to first click on boundary. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and use my pick lines tool, and I'm gonna define the boundary of my stair, like so. I'm also gonna define an interior boundary. All right, so I'm gonna click on, let's say, maybe this line and this line. Okay. Now, if you really wanted to get really precise, you can actually go around that line as well. I've noticed, I've gotten it to work on Revit a few times, but Revit starts to get a little finicky when you choose to do that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and define my, let's see, boundary. Okay, so notice that I've created an exterior boundary and an interior boundary. Okay, I'm not going to put a line here because I'm going to go ahead and use my my riser button, and I'm going to go ahead and trace over the risers that you see here on the screen. Okay. So this one's always a little tricky. It may give me some problems. We'll see. It's always been kind of a tough one to create. It takes a few tries sometimes. I think by all these lines touching right here, I don't know if it's going to like that. I may have to just separate them a little bit. I don't know if you guys can see this. It says 16 risers created, 3 remaining. Okay, so we're gonna have to kind of fudge this just a little bit to get to the very top. They probably had something like 8 or 9 inch risers back in the day, which is why they only show the number that they do. Okay, so I'm just gonna mess with the spacing just a little bit more to make sure that we get to the very top. Otherwise, you're going to click on the finish button and your staircase is going to be about 1.5 feet short from your level. So I'm basically going to add 2 treads. And I'm just kind of eyeballing this right now just for simplicity purposes. Eyeballing in architecture is not always the best thing. My boss will look at me sometimes and say, "Are you eyeballing that?" Yes. Oops, that's not what I want. Sorry, wrong button. All right, so let's see. Let's see where we are in our tread count. So it says 6 remaining. I think we should be pretty good. Three more, so let's do 1. All right. Bear with me for just a sec. Okay, so it'd be something about like that. Yes, I could spend a couple more minutes and kind of align all these, and I could calculate how that's going to work, but I'm not going to do that right this second. So from here, I've defined all of my boundaries. Okay, so I have an outer boundary and I have an inner boundary. All right, so as soon as you have that and you've created all of your risers, all of your riser lines from the very beginning to the very top, you can go ahead and hit the check mark. Okay, so it's saying I can't make a baluster somewhere. That's fine. It's just kind of the same message. Can't create the continuous rail geometry. That's okay. Oh, maybe it's not going to be okay. Let's see. This is what I usually mean by it could be a little finicky. Last year I was lucky and it worked out on the first try. Oh, come on now. So it's just telling me it won't work because of the handrail, unfortunately, but let's see. What is causing that to not work? Everything looks okay. What? I have no clue why.
It didn't do anything.
I literally just changed the line a tiny bit, and that's all that it took.
It must not have been connected quite right.
Yeah, so sometimes it takes a little. It's a little finicky when you start to create really custom stairs that aren't your typical stair. Revit will sometimes be a little fussy, but that's basically how it's going to work.
Can
Okay.
we see those in 3D?
Yeah, absolutely. No, we can. Yeah, let's see.
Like that.
See what this looks like. We go inside like that. Not quite. Okay, so you can see here we have our stair that goes to the very top. I don't know what kind of hand railings they actually use. I don't even know if there are hand railings. Let's just take a look. Oh, yes, there is. And I'm going to show you. So for now, let's just delete the hand railings that come with the stair. I'm going to show you guys how to create this next class. Okay? But that'll be for another discussion because we're going to start to create some kind of custom elements to be able to create that. All right, so that's about it for today. Let's delete these hand railings. All right, that gives us our stair up to the next level. Just like the ramp, you can click on your stair, go to copy to clipboard, and we're going to go paste, align to select levels, and we're going to click on first floor, hit OK, and that brings us up to the roof. All right, and that's going to be our staircase. Any questions about any of that? Good. It's 11:30. We'll go ahead and pause this for here. Let's work for about half an hour. Continue on your critical thinking exercise or start working on your villa. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'm here to help.